Hey everybody, Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon coming at you with a couple of pro-revenge stories. First one, pyramid scheme scammer ends up paying in the end. Let's jump right in. Hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was trying to enlist in the military. I ended up not joining, but that's a story for another time. At this point, I was led to believe I was about 4 months away from leaving for boot camp. I was running out of savings and needing a part-time job for spending cash while I waited around. So I did what any enterprising 20-something would do and searched Craigslist for jobs. I normally hate sales jobs, especially those based on commissions, but figured it would be a great way to earn some extra cash short-term. Found a few job listings that looked promising and put out some applications. A few days later, I received a call from David. He was opening up a new store and needed associates. He liked my resume and asked if I'd be available for an interview on Friday morning. I was very upfront with him and let him know that the distance was a bit more than I'd normally drive for a retail job, and asked what he was offering for an hourly rate to see if it was worth the drive. He told me that they were planning on offering an hourly rate in the mid-teens along with commission. Seemed like an okay deal, so I agreed to be there Friday at 8 a.m. Friday arrives as a cold, rainy day. I wear a nice shirt and tie and drive in heavy traffic to the address David provided. I knew the area from a previous job and eventually found the strip mall I was looking for. However, I'm not seeing any signage for the company name that was listed. There is, however, one empty space with no signage and 2 people inside. Okay, maybe they haven't gotten the store set up yet. No big deal. I had arrived early, knowing how bad traffic can be in that area. While in my car, I witnessed a young lady in business casual dress remove a sign from the window stating, "Retail space for rent, call 1-800 blah blah." Okay, a little weird, but maybe it's the first day in the space. I walk in about 5 minutes early, and immediately my BS meter goes from yellow to the highest level, black watch plaid. The tables are all simple plastic folding tables, the kind college kids would buy for beer pong while on a shopping trip to Target. The walls are plastered with laminated charts featuring tons of dollar signs, smiling faces from stock photos, and an organizational chart showing an all too familiar shape. A pyramid. God damn it. Alright, might as well have fun for a while to wait out traffic going home. The young lady in the dress approaches me, introducing herself as Cindy. She welcomed me to the company name and asked me to have a seat. She sat at her desk, another plastic table, and pretended to go through paperwork. However, she was really just shuffling papers around. We got to chatting, and I asked her how long she's worked for David. She said she's been his secretary for about 6 months, and that I'm going to love it here. Eventually, a guy walks out of the back office, early 30s, clean cut, wearing an ill-fitting suit from JCPenney's. As he is walking over, all smiles. Cindy says, "Oh, Dennis, our newest recruit is here." The guy stops in his tracks and gives her a cold stare. "It's David, Cindy. We've been over this." He turns back to me and gives me his brightest, hard to find good help these days smile. David sits me down and welcomes me, saying they are going to start with a group interview and has me sit down in a circle of chairs. Eventually, more people come in and sit down. David gets up and begins to thank us all for coming. He tells us about an exciting new opportunity from Cutco. He pulls out a set of knives and explains how with his company we can make as much money as we want, all while setting our own hours. He even pulls out a textbook saying about how this company's revolutionary tactics have even been featured in college textbooks. He opens to a page, his hand covering parts of it, making sure we can all clearly see the words Cutco in large letters on the page. Sad to say, a lot of the other interviewees were very impressed by this. One pregnant girl seemed very excited that she could work around her pregnancy and upcoming birth. David was going on and on about how much money he's made and how hard workers will rise to the top quickly. At this point, David said he needed to take a quick phone call and gave us 5 minutes to have some coffee, chit-chat, whatever. As he stepped away, he left his college textbook behind. Oops. So I picked it up and find the earmark page and read. As I thought, it was all about pyramid schemes and it had Cutco as one of the largest examples. It goes on to talk about how these are essentially scams not economically viable, etc., etc. So I decided to share this all with the group. I explained how pyramid schemes work and how he's just scamming us. They seemed incredulous, so I said when David gets back to ask them about what we need to pay to get started. That finally got everyone to realize what was going on. David walks in a few minutes later, and one of the girls in the group asks David what we need to get started. Well, all you need is your first set of knives to demonstrate. You can sell that on directly, or have them order one and keep that as your demo kit. Doesn't matter, just have to pay the startup fees for it. And that's when all hell broke loose. One kid started to get up and tell him to go f himself, saying he's wasting our time and he's an asshole for trying to pull this shit. The pregnant girl is crying because she thought she found a place that would allow her to work despite being pregnant. David is clearly confused and flustered and asking who told them all this. When it becomes apparent I'm the wrench in the machine, David gets upset and starts telling me to leave. People are yelling at David. David is yelling at me. Cindy is trying to tell everyone she never met David before today and didn't know what this bullshit was. Eventually, we all walk out, leaving David behind. As I'm walking out the door, I see leaning against the wall the sign that was in the window before. Retail space for rent, call 1-800 blah blah. And as I get into my car, I dial the number. Eventually, I get through to a person and ask about the property for rent at the location of David's company. The nice lady on the phone apologized, saying they had just leased that property out. I asked if she knew how long the lease was for, as I was really interested in the property. She said she wasn't sure. They hadn't done the official paperwork yet. They were on their way to the space to sign everything with the leaseholder in a few hours. I told her everything that had just happened to me and about David using the space for a pyramid scheme. She got extremely upset, saying that this stuff happens all the time in the industry. They will go to sign, and last minute the leaseholder will decide to opt out after using it for some fly-by-night operation. She thanked me for the info, and I thought that was the end of that. Or so I thought. A few weeks later, I received an email from David telling me how I ruined his life, about how the property management found out what was going on and weren't refunding his down payment on the space, saying he violated a clause in the paperwork he signed to hold the property, how he knew I was the one who called because I'm a terrible human being, etc., etc. Now, he was out thousands for the space and supplies, how he only wanted to give us jobs and help us. It was a long, very angry email with several things said about me and my mother. So I called 1-800 blah blah again, spoke with the same lady I did before, and she was very interested in an email from David where he essentially admitted to what he was trying to do, said it would help them in all the legal proceedings, and don't you know, I was more than happy to send that email along to her. Her lawyer said it should be an open and shut case at that point. I'd like to think I'm a helper. I'd never really thought of it again until now, but I just realized that I went to one of these interviews when I was quite a bit younger, probably in my early 20s. And I didn't know it at the time, I didn't know what was going on, but when I walked in I had this really weird feeling about the meeting. I think I stayed for a whole of 2 or 3 sentences, and then got up and walked out of the building, and nobody followed me, so I guess I wasn't all that important to what they were doing. On to our next story. You have run out of Amulfax Shuffle Time. Let's jump right in. This isn't my story, it's my father's, but I'm posting this on his behalf. Decades ago, my father was studying computer engineering in America, and he was damn good at it too. He got his PhD, and from looking at the pattern recognition work he did to get it, I can say that he is part of the foundation that allows for tech like facial recognition and similar. Anyway, at the time, he was working his master's degree, and for some reason, his university hired and called in a PhD from Singapore to lecture and assist in some work. This guy was 10 out of 10 asshole. Nobody liked him, and the only thing he ever did was rub his PhD in your face, because if you only had a bachelor's, then you were below him. This guy would disrupt things, cut you off constantly, dismiss your opinions, etc. At some point, my father and his friends got sick of his so they developed a simple yet infuriating plan to put this guy in his place. One day, the guy goes to log into the uni system, only to be met with a message saying, Error, you have run out of Amulfax Shuffle Time. Please contact your local administrator. Of course, my father and his friends were the go-to people for this issue. So this man had to humble up and go ask my father what this error was, as he had no clue what Amulfax Shuffle Time was. Nobody did, it didn't exist. Anyway, my father smiles at the guy and says, "Ah yes, our systems run on Amulfax Shuffle Time. If you want more, you'll have to fill in Form 27B/6. For those of you who don't recognize that reference, Form 27B/6 is from the movie Brazil, where a man was told to threaten people with this seemingly non-existent joke form. People who weren't aware of the trick would back off when asked about whether they had first filled this form. Anyway, the guy had to read through and fill in a couple of pages of this falsified form, after which he was awarded a couple more hours of Amulfax Shuffle Time. This continued on for months, before the guy finally got sick of having to fill out the form over and over again, dropping what he was doing so he could get more time on the university's computers. So he decided to refer to the manual on Amulfax Shuffle Time. My dad tells me that you could access manuals to things like this by typing something in the command prompt or something like that. Anyway, little did he know, my dad had gone ahead and written a full manual on Amulfaxivity with like 100 pages that he just didn't have the patience to look through and study in detail. So this guy had to keep dealing with it day in, day out for a long time, having to do this annoyingly painstaking task for every few hours he spent on the computer. Eventually, my dad decided that the guy probably suffered enough, and the experience did seem to humble him enough to accept my dad's offer to grab a drink when they were free. They chatted like mates for a bit before my dad brought up Amulfax Shuffle Time, and they laughed about it and then offered to give him some permanent shuffle time. Throughout all of it, the guy never suspected a thing, and unless he browses Reddit, he probably never will. People who think they're better than others just because of their education or job really piss me off. I mean, what gives you the right to think you're better than somebody just because you spent a little bit more time in school? I can understand being proud of your accomplishments, but you definitely don't use it to make other people feel bad. Another observation, 27B/6 is the apartment Orwell wrote 1984 in, so that's kinda neat. Apartment 6, 27B, Canonbury Square. Just a little food for thought for those who didn't recognize it. I want to thank the OPs for sharing their stories to the ProRevenge subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I ask you to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.